Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco dishing out on the movies. And we are still on the is this movie a children's movie or an adult movie?
And this is the movie that started it all.
It's
Started the whole concept, that is.
we are reviewing Big Top Pee-wee today, and the main character Paul Rubens is Pee-wee Herman, and it was made in let's see here, 1988. And it begins with Pee Wee Herman singing an adult song on stage, and all his fans in the audience, teens and older 20 somethings, screaming in support and adoration. Very anti Pee Wee Herman because this is not an audience of children. After his performance, he exits the theater in disguise. When it partially comes off, his fans chase after him. Then he wakes up. This led me to believe it was all a dream. Next thing you know, he's on a farm, doing Pee-wee types of antics with his farm family, a gaggle of large and small farm animals, and a talking pig cohort named Vance. He grows vegetables and owns a special greenhouse where amazing florals grow at record pace in beauty due to some magical concoction he invented. And then there's the hot dog tree, his secret special tree that he is perfecting with hopes of unveiling it to the world someday. Needless to say, the farm activities and animal tricks are very Pee Wee Herman until he goes into town where he introduces us to a lovely girlfriend named Winnie, his lovely girlfriend, played by Penelope Ann Miller, who is almost as goofy and likable as him. And then there's the townspeople, who are mean, nasty, and just plain awful. A small traveling circus led by Chris Christopherson, whose character is Maze, Montana?
Yeah.
Or Mace?
Mace. I don't know.
And
doesn't
it
matter.
Doesn't matter because
No.
I know who he is, and I just
sucks.
refer to him as Chris Christopherson the entire time. Well, they come to the town to perform, but these townspeople are so awful. They don't want the circus there, even though the circus performers have cash and might easily pour some revenue into their local businesses. Pee Wee invites Chris, that's Chris Christopherson, and his circus to take a break and stay at his farm for a while. And they agree to do it. Marco?
Uh, well, I mean, let's start off with how this concept came about. I watched this movie in the springtime, and I just watched it for fun. And I remember it because it was a certain date, and we were having gross brisket. It was horrible food, but I remember watching the movie and thinking just how boring it is, and also thinking like, what kind of a kid would care for this movie? Like, why did they think that kids would like this movie? And I was thinking, ooh, this would be really cool to do a month where we talk about movies that are made for kids, like they're not, but they are. Like, it's really confusing, and that's the whole point of this month, of well, the previous month, I guess you'd say. And so the when I watched it in the spring, I thought it was horrible. I thought it was boring. It was awful, and I hated it. I did not want to watch it anymore. And then when I recently watched it, actually, I liked it quite a bit. I wouldn't say that it's it's a good movie. But in terms of maybe it was the food that I was eating, and that has a lot to do with this channel. Food, movies. Maybe that horrible brisket and then something else that was going on really added to how much I disliked the the movie, because I watched it recently, and it's okay. It's got its moments, and that's what's really interesting, is that it has like really funny moments that make you wonder, why isn't the rest of the movie as funny as this? Like, there are a couple of really funny moments, and I'm sure Safi might have an idea. And the one thing that's a huge turnoff, though, is the romance. And there's a lot of romance in this movie, and it doesn't feel like you're meant to see what's going on. And it feels like it was made specifically so that the main actor could uh, do what he wanted with the actresses that he felt attractive. And that's in all seriousness, because I mean, this movie, it's Pee Wee. I don't know what about Pee Wee has to do with love and romance and sleeping with the exotic circus woman or the townie girl. I don't know what that has to do with Pee Wee. Safi? Safi?
Well, that's true. I guess my initial problem with it that just kind of like hit me over the head and I almost couldn't continue was the fact that Marco did some research about the movie and what was cut out of it. And basically a whole chunk of the beginning.
No. The whole story.
Well, they changed the story, but they left part of the original in there. Remember when I said it led me to believe that he was having a dream? Well, in the original story, which would have made a lot more sense as part of a complete story, was that Pee Wee was a famous singer in the city, or all over the country, or all over the world. I don't know how far.
And he didn't like the fame, and he didn't like all the attention, and so he wanted to escape that by moving out to the country on this farm and in this small town. And
Yes.
so that was supposed to be this movie. It was not supposed to be a movie about a love triangle and about the circus invading his home and stealing from him and ruining everything. It was supposed to be about him getting away from the big city. And so they captured that a little bit with the opening dream sequence, I guess it was. I can't even remember it from my recent viewing what that was,
Well,
because it was so stupid. It was so stupid though, like it didn't even belong in the movie, because it had.
No, it was somebody else's, like the Beatles. It was their audience or something.
Well, you know what it was like? It was almost like uh the actor wanted that scene in the movie. And again, that's a common theme with this movie. It was almost like the actor really liked that concept and they didn't want to do it, so he said, "Oh, can you please put this one scene in where I can sing and we can do this really funny gag where people actually think that Abraham Lincoln is still alive and that I'm Abraham Lincoln." Like, that would be really funny. I want to do that. And if you won't do that, I won't do the movie. That's what a lot of stuff in this movie felt like. Don't you agree, Safi? Don't you agree?
Yeah, I felt like it felt like there were two chapters to the book. The introductory chapters were missing, and then at the end, which I won't say, but they kind of resolve a little bit one of the issues, but the whole point of the movie, which it turns out to be, they don't even they don't resolve it. It's like up in the air, and you're wondering like what's going to happen. And also the thing is about I wondered why the townspeople were so crappy. I guess I could say this because it's well, it's a whole big scene, and it's kind of funny, but then it's kind of sickening. And that is, he goes into town and he goes into the store and he asks the guy to make him a cheese sandwich because he had cheese and bread. He had pickles. I don't know what else he had, but that was in the scene. And there were two old ladies in there, and they were yammering over.
Purposefully taking up as much time as possible, and I'm not saying that is like I'm implying it. They actually did that. They were taking up time on purpose so that Pee Wee would have to stand there and wait like he did something wrong or something. And another thing is that these townspeople at the beginning, they treat him like he's this big famous guy, and that he's just he acts like he's entitled and he deserves everything. And so the whole concept about him escaping that city life and going to the small town, it doesn't really make sense because, like, look at how they treat him. If they made that movie and did this scene, it wouldn't make any sense.
Well, that was another thing. Since we didn't know, well, I guess Marco did because he did the research. But like, let's say, the show Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, and he goes out and they'll meet a neighbor and they'll meet another neighbor and they'll do a segment about what the neighbor does. And so everybody is friendly to each other and they know each other. But they were crappy to him. And to me, for a children's show, if you think about any of them, like in the past, that I've watched way in the past, I won't even mention them, but let's say Barney and all these other ones, they'll visit neighbors or so, and they are friendly, like they know each other. And so if he has always been on this farm, why wouldn't they be more friendly, like they knew each other? So that was I didn't understand the disconnect between how they treated him and how it should have been.
It was done for comedy.
No, it wasn't funny. I didn't like it.
I thought it was hilarious.
Well, I didn't like
some of it. It all depends really, because there is some it doesn't, it has a very mean vibe to it, but
yeah, that's what it was.
You're the same person who liked Little Monsters and said Little Monsters wasn't mean.
No, I didn't say that.
Little Monsters is like 1,000 times more meaner than this.
I don't know about that. He's in a small. I mean, this is a little town, and he's and another thing too. And I've seen this in real life several times. You have somebody, and this could be anybody, even a celebrity, it could be anybody. They think they've done this whole life for a long time, and then they say, oh, I'm going to get a farm. I'm going to get a winery because they have all this money, or they have enough money to do it, to buy one, and they don't know what the hell they're doing. And
that would have been funny.
But Pee Wee's farm, yeah, that would have really, and that would have made sense if they would have left the scene in about coming to the small town. But what they'll do is they'll have a crappy farm. They won't know how to grow things, and they won't know how to manage farm animals. Like, let's say they want to have cattle, or they want to have sheep or goats. Well, they don't know what to do. They're incompetent. They don't know. They didn't do any research. They just think they can come in and just have a winery and grow grapes.
That doesn't really have anything to do with this movie, though.
Well, what I'm saying is his farm was perfect. He had all these animals.
Yeah, he was like a master farmer. He's probably in top 10 farmers of 1988.
It was 88, because that's when your big brother was born. But anyway, his farm was perfect. All the vegetables were growing, and they looked perfect. He had a greenhouse, and he had a magic potion, and he didn't refer to it as magic potion. He just came and like swirled some of the stuff around in a jar, like a little laboratory in there too, in the greenhouse. And then he put it in the plants, and they all magically bloomed beautiful, like really big flowers. And then of course he had this hot dog tree, and that's something else completely. I'm not going to go into that because just saying a hot dog tree is enough to say that's different. So
it's comedy. That's a comedy aspect of it, is the fact
yeah,
that,
that's fine.
and that was really funny.
Yes, that was fine. But what I'm saying is, here he is all his life. He's been singing, and he's been this famous person, and he's never been on a farm in his life. And he goes to this place. He doesn't. We don't even know why he picked the place. And all these, he has the perfect crops and the perfect greenhouse. He has perfect farm animals, live in a stable, and they're all perfectly taken care of. He has the right food, because that's another thing. You have to have the right food for your animals. And, I mean, it's just unbelievable. So I just like, there was a couple of disconnects, and I don't like that. So, go ahead, sorry. So,
Well,
yeah.
We should talk about this movie's plot, because you've been talking a lot about your personal opinions, not really the plot.
I didn't want to give anything away.
Well, we should talk about this love triangle between the exotic girl and Pee-wee the pervert, and then the blonde girl who turns out to be a slut near the end.
Well, I don't know about that. I guess the thing is, like I said in the beginning, here he is on this farm. They show all this stuff with animals and their tricks and the hot dog tree and all. That's all very children oriented.
Once
like
he goes into town, it becomes adult.
It's like a completely different movie, actually.
Yeah.
He has a girlfriend, like Pee Wee Herman has a girlfriend, and I'm not talking. I think before in other movies in the show they might have had where he liked this girl, but it was like different. It was kind of like a clown thing. Like he had a flower and he gave her the flower, which he did do in the movie as well. But he was kissing and
doing a lot of other stuff too. And
that wasn't shown. I'm not saying that it was shown. The kissing was.
In this scene, he like flipped her over and he was like on top of her and she pushed him off like twice. It was and I gotta admit that scene was hilarious. If the whole movie had been as funny as that scene, then the movie would have been like an A+ movie, like a filet mignon movie. But
I don't know. It was. It's like a completely different movie though, and it was not that all. From when he went into town, from then on, it wasn't a children's movie at all.
Well,
except maybe at the end.
The circus crap.
Yeah, at the end with the circus, because I said a circus came into town.
The 4-H circus.
And he invited them to come to the farm and stay there, like for a little vacation. So they could figure out where they were going to go next and what they were going to do. And then, this is another thing, this is just a personal thing that kind of bugged me. The guy has one bathroom in his house. And talking about a circus, a whole group of people, maybe 50 to 100 people, using one bathroom? I mean, really?
And let's just talk about what the circus people do. Pee-wee, there was a storm, and that scene was stupid. I hated that scene, didn't you? When he's down in the basement and he's just dicking around while the storm goes on. That was stupid. That was a stupid scene. But then he wakes up in bed, or he wakes up in the basement, and he goes upstairs, and the circus people are trespassing.
Yeah, they just show up.
Going to the bathroom in his bathroom. They're getting ready. They're stealing all of his food and eating it. And there's animals inside the house. There's a lion. There's a hippopotamus that's raping the pig, which is implied. And so, like, you'd think that, like, I mean, if I was Pee-wee, I'd get out a shotgun and start shooting people left and right if they were trying to, had invaded my house like that. And he's just like, who cares? was, oh yeah, it's great. Oh yeah, and it wasn't funny, and it really wasn't entertaining to watch.
I just thought it was weird. Totally weird. I mean, they just show up out of nowhere. The storm is over, and he comes out of his. He has one of those things that you have on a farm, like for Wizard of Oz, where there's no basement, so you have a storage area where you have these doors on the ground. You go into a crawl, well, kind of a big enlarged crawl space where they keep vegetables. A root cellar. That's what I'm thinking of. And he comes out there with all the animals and his whole farm is covered with all these people and their stuff.
And I would understand if they were just outside, like trying to get in, and they were like trying to ask, hey, is there anyone in there that can help us? Or something like that. But they had deliberately broken into his house. And so they're not likable people at all. They're criminals. And then he meets Chris Christopherson.
Chris Christopherson.
Christopherson, and
Poor Marco.
I did that on purpose. I did that for comedy, like this movie, just doing stupid things that don't make any sense for the sake of comedy. And this character, he's probably one of the worst parts of the movie, by the way, because his character, there's nothing to him. He's not charismatic. He's not funny. He's not the only thing that he is he's just constantly doing favors for Pee-wee and giving Pee-wee advice. And that's all he does for Pee-wee. And so I don't like his character. I didn't like the whole storyline with this character. How he spoiler alert, well, not really spoilers, but he's the head of the circus, and the weird thing is that the people in this town don't want a circus, which I wouldn't want this crappy circus either, by the way.
Yeah,
and
but they have nothing out there. This is in the middle of nowhere, and they have nothing, and you would think they have a small town, and you have all these small towns all over the country where a highway, where there used to be a road through town, and a highway comes in and so all the main routes that people take when they drive, it's all bypass them, and so they lose all this business and the towns shrink. I mean, this is something that really happens in real life, and it's been depicted on TV and movies for a million years because this is just something that's happened over the years. And you'd think they'd want the business of these people who have money. They come into town, they want to spend money, and put on a circus. And, oh no, we don't want your money. We don't want anything to do with you. We don't want a circus. We don't want your money. We want you to go away. Why? Because we're queer.
But you know, but you know what? There's no customers for the circus in this movie. Well, in this movie, they try to imply that the only customers are these mean adults. Like there's these kids who are in the school at the beginning of the movie, and apparently they don't have parents because.
Well, they never show them.
Yeah, they never show them. They never show the kids from school going to the circus, and the blonde woman, she's their teacher, so she could have taken them all to the circus on a field trip or whatever, no, not really a field trip. But you see my point of this movie is just, it's not very well thought out. It's kind of like thrown together like, hey, we gotta really quickly come up with a Pee-wee movie, and we better do it really quick, and it better be really good.
Well, I think we have to hurry up and wrap it up, but...
No, we don't. We have to review the movie.
Well, we have to wrap it up. So.
Well, you're wasting time not reviewing the movie.
Okay, well, anyway, Marco mentioned that there's another girl. And so...
She's the exotic girl.
She's a girl who... I don't even know how to describe what she did. she does a trapeze thing, but that's only a little bit.
She's Italian.
And she also does a thing where you climb up this rope and they twirl you around and you're like swinging and you're holding on with hands and you're waving out in the air like you're a flag. I don't know what that's called. But I'm sorry.
And she's Italian.
So anyway,
that's her character.
He likes her, and it ends up he has a love triangle. He has her, and they're kissing, and they show him kissing, and he has a girlfriend who I mentioned, who makes him egg salad sandwiches, which he doesn't care for, and that part was funny. There's a whole part about egg salad, that is a funny part in the movie, which I'm not going to say anything more about, because if you want to watch it, you want to watch the egg salad part. But anyway, that is not for children. A love triangle, really?
And
it's not very long, maybe. I don't know.
It's long in terms of how much time it takes out of the movie. The movie is not a long movie. It's actually really, really short and lazily, sloppily put together, but the love triangle takes up a huge portion of the movie.
Yes, it does. And like I said, I'll just say in general, it looks like that I'm not totally positive, because like I said, they left all these storylines open. It was like they knitted a sweater and didn't finish it. I don't know, it's weird. I said he had a love triangle, and it kind of went on for a little while, but then the other, the Millie, or the townie girl, she saw those two together. She saw him and that, he calls her the exotic girl, together.
She's
kissing.
The exotic girl.
And she got mad and she kind of broke up with him. But then in the end, they kind of like, I don't know, it seemed like they were just friends. So now he's with only this girl in the circus. So are they going to be together forever? And since they're in a traveling circus, that means they're going to leave soon. Is he going to leave with them? Who knows?
Well, and that would be weird too, because he wanted to get away from that fame and popularity, and then he would join the circus and go along and get all that harassment, because people would find him if he's at the circus all over the place, and so but with this movie, one thing I'd like to touch on is that Pee-wee is likable. Is Pee-wee a likable protagonist? Because I think out of all the kids' movies we've reviewed this month, what have we reviewed?
Monsters.
Little Monsters, the Peanut Butter Solution, of course, and both of those movies do not have very likable protagonists.
Yeah.
Pee-wee is actually a great protagonist in this movie. He's a lot more adult. He's a lot more relatable to anybody. The way that he doesn't like egg salad, and that's funny, and how all the stuff that he likes to do. He has the hot dog tree, and how nice he is. Like, he's a great protagonist in this movie. And usually when I think of Pee-wee, I think of him in that first movie where he's I don't like Pee-wee in his first movie. And something else interesting is that this movie is written by Pee-wee himself and the writer of the Pee-wee Playhouse show. So this movie should have been more of a kid's movie than the last one was, but the last one was actually more of a kid's movie than this one. And so that's what's really strange, is all that type of stuff. And again, it really all centers around, I think, Pee-wee wanting to make out with an Italian woman.
Well.
Which, that's also, FYI, that was considered the longest on-screen kiss in movie history at the time. And so you really want to get into the reasoning why this movie was made. I don't think it was to entertain children.
Okay, well, I guess, like I said, my problems with it were the unresolved story lines. And and the other one, and then what? And part of that is what happens in the end, or what will happen. Who knows? But the other thing that I did like, except it still lacked something, and that was the adults who were mean and horrible. They were changed, but I won't say how. But it wasn't voluntary. So, but
Well,
that
we'll,
was a
we'll
good
talk
part.
about that in spoilers. So let's rate the movie now.
Okay, well I'm going to give the movie a cheeseburger Happy Meal, which I eat
Ooh.
frequently because it has little servings of food like a few little French fries, cheeseburger, a tube of yogurt, and then I order a small Coke because I don't eat very much. It's perfect for me. It's really supposed to be for kids because of the toy and the small sizes of food, but I collect the toys. I don't eat the fries and eat everything else. In other words, I've turned a kid's meal into a special meal for adults who don't eat much and like to collect toys. The fries are awful, so that represents the complete lack of story resolution and completeness that occurred at the very beginning and at the end. I like Paul Rubens, though, because he's a great character actor. There's not a lot of those around, and I think they can be important to any story. But I can't understand that he's an adult, and at that time wanted to act like one in a movie.
No, he wanted to kiss an Italian girl.
Well, anyway, and when he made this movie, he had to bring his Pee Wee label into it to get it made. That's my opinion, of course, and no one else's. So go ahead, Marco. What are you rating it?
This movie is a confusing mixture of adult and kid movie because it's not a kid's movie. That's clear from the moment he goes into town and he's flipping around the grass with this blonde woman. And then it's not an adult movie very much because you just look at the stupid circus plot and you look at all this really kind of laid back attitude about them like just completely trespassing and stealing from him and invading his property. That stuff really isn't fun to watch as an adult. It might have been fun to watch for a kid because you're thinking, this is fun. There's a circus that blew into his yard and they're all using his house and everything. But I give this movie, it was hard. I thought about it for a little bit because it doesn't even seem like it should be a food because it's not one thing. And so I had to go again. This is a common theme this month, I guess, with multiple items. For peanut butter solution, I did those different types of crackers with sardines on top. And then for Little Monsters, I did the 6 or 12 snowballs. Well, for this one, I'm going with pigs in a blanket. And now the thing is that the host, he's pretentious. He's a pretentious postmodernist chef, and we all know how that turns out with making food. And he takes these different pigs in a blanket, which are traditionally like something kids enjoy, something adults could enjoy.
It's for like the Super Bowl.
And and he takes each one and he inserts a different flavor into it somehow. He takes one and he makes a vegan pig in a blanket, and then he takes another and he makes it a fish pigs in a blanket with like really like shrimp. Kids don't like shrimp or something like that. Some kind of fish that kids don't like. Like you can see where this goes from here. Like, I'm really pretentious and I'm cool. So I'm gonna make a tomato soup flavored pig in a blanket, like stuff like that. That's what this movie feels like. I can't nail it down to an amount too, like I usually would be able to say, it's like 12 pigs in a blanket, 5. I can't do that with this one because honestly, it just feels so random and again, lazy, and not put together as one project, and so I can't name an amount. But it's weird types of pigs in a blanket that you wouldn't want to eat. They're really pretentious, and not really pretentious, but just it seems like the guy who made it, he had an agenda for himself, and maybe actually he's a huge fan of these flavors, and so it's all about him again. He wanted to make out with that Italian girl, and so that's what this whole movie's about. It's about making out with an Italian girl, and that comes across the whole movie except for a couple of select funny parts. And spoiler alert, Safi, explain the part about the adults, about the pigs, the hot dogs, the cocktail wieners.
Well, he was trying to grow this hot dog tree, which I talked about a few times, and they did look like regular hot dogs. And then something happened, and didn't he pour the?
He used after. Oh, we have to talk about that.
Well, we can't. We can't right now. That's a spoiler.
We're on spoilers. Spoilers. He and the Italian woman had a fight because the movie people were too lazy to figure out something else funny to do, and then he makes up with her, and then he has sex with her, which is implied in a very short, stupid, dumb montage of weird metaphorical images, and then he wakes up and he's like really happy that he was just with this Italian woman. You see what I mean by why he made this movie? And then he accidentally puts too much formula into the thing.
The hot dog tree.
The hot dog tree. And so that shrinks all the hot dogs.
And they're the size of a cocktail wiener.
Yeah.
Instead of full-sized hot dogs. And so we're doing a spoiler?
Yeah.
So anyway, I can't even remember.
With the adults?
He takes the cocktail wieners and he cuts them off the tree or whatever. He takes them off the tree and he puts them on a plate and he takes them into town, and for some reason he thinks that those adults, by giving the cocktail wieners to these adults, that it'll turn them into children. In other words, the regular hot dogs shrank to baby hot dogs.
So maybe...
Right? So maybe the adults will turn into children. And so they can go, and I guess it's about the circus. They're going to put on, they are going to put on a circus that's going to be related to the family